In the stillness of evening, when the world grows quiet and the weight of the day begins to fade, let us turn our thoughts toward a gentle reflection. Inflation, though often spoken of in numbers and charts, is in truth a quiet presence in our daily lives. It is felt in the rise of prices at the market, the shifting balance of our savings, and the silent calculations made at the dinner table. This story is not told in haste, nor with urgency. It is told slowly, like the steady rhythm of a clock, reminding us that time moves forward, and with it, our understanding deepens. Together, we will walk along hidden paths of patience, discipline, and quiet wisdom that offer calm even in uncertain times. So, rest your thoughts, ease your breath, and let the story unfold with gentle clarity. Now let us begin. Hidden Paths to Beating Inflation. Bedtime Finance Story. Hidden Paths to Beating Inflation. The Weight of Rising Prices. Inflation has a way of creeping quietly into daily life. It does not announce itself with sudden alarms, but instead with subtle increases. Groceries costing a little more than before, a bus ticket requiring a few extra coins, the monthly rent nudging upward. For many people, it feels as though the ground beneath their financial footing has become softer, less certain, almost shifting like sand. Imagine a family at the start of a new decade. The father recalls how his own parents bought bread for a fraction of today's cost, and the mother notices that her salary, though higher in numbers, seems weaker in its power. Their children, too young to notice, still sense the anxiety in small household conversations. The sigh at the dinner table, the quiet arithmetic done on scraps of paper, the hesitation before agreeing to a simple outing. Inflation, at its heart, is not simply about prices. It is about trust. Trust in money to carry the same value tomorrow as it does today. When that trust is shaken, people begin to look elsewhere, for protection, for certainty, for stability. Some retreat into saving more, though they find their savings melt faster than expected. Others take risks, chasing investments they do not fully understand, hoping to outrun the erosion. This first path of recognition is essential. Without acknowledging the slow erosion of value, there can be no deeper journey. Like a traveler who realizes the road behind is crumbling, one must first pause and notice before deciding how to step forward. Reflection. Inflation is not an enemy that roars. It is a whisper that reshapes our lives quietly, unless we learn to listen. The memory of past storms. History offers reminders that inflation is not new. The world has faced it in cycles, some mild, some devastating. There was the hyperinflation of Weimar Germany, where money was printed so quickly that it lost value by the hour, and workers were paid twice a day just so they could spend before prices doubled. In Zimbabwe, entire generations witnessed their currency collapse until it became cheaper to use the notes as paper for crafts than as a means of exchange. Yet, not all storms have been so dramatic. In many decades, inflation has been steady but persistent, like a slow fog rolling in over a city, limiting vision without causing panic. In such times, people adjusted quietly. They cut back, planted gardens, bartered with neighbors, and sought investments that could keep pace. Looking back at these examples, the lesson becomes clear. Inflation is never permanent in one form, but the memory of it lingers. Families tell stories of their grandparents carrying sacks of bills to buy bread, or of parents learning the importance of tangible assets like land and gold. These stories are not just historical curiosities. They are guideposts for the present. To beat inflation is not to escape it entirely, but to adapt, and adaptation begins with remembering. The memory of past storms gives shape to the shelters we build today. Reflection. In the long rhythm of history, inflation comes and goes, but the wisdom of survival endures. The silent power of saving differently. Traditional saving, placing money in a jar, or even in a simple bank account, was once enough to provide comfort. Yet, in times of inflation, the very act of saving can feel like pouring water into a vessel with tiny holes. Each month, the purchasing power seeps away. Some people respond by saving differently. Instead of letting cash sit still, they channel it into assets that tend to rise with inflation. Real estate, for instance, offers both a roof and a store of value. Stocks, though volatile, often reflect the upward movement of prices through company revenues. Even small ownership in businesses, cooperatives, or community projects can yield returns that stand taller against the tide of rising costs. Others find strength in what is called inflation-protected securities, government bonds designed to move with the consumer price index. These instruments quietly protect wealth, not by growing rapidly, but by refusing to shrink. The power lies not in abandoning saving, but in redefining it. A family that once stored extra in a low-interest account begins to think more broadly. One portion in cash for emergencies, another in assets that might rise, another in opportunities that nurture growth. Slowly, their anxiety softens, replaced by the calm of preparation. Reflection. To save in times of inflation is not to hold money tightly, but to guide it wisely into forms that endure. The discipline of living. Smaller. Another hidden path lies not in chasing more, but in needing less. Inflation makes luxuries feel unreachable, but it also shines a light on habits that may no longer serve. Consider a family who once dined out often. As prices rose, they rediscovered the quiet rhythm of cooking at home, the comfort of shared meals prepared slowly. Others turned hobbies into practical skills, sewing clothes, repairing old furniture, or cultivating small gardens in backyards and balconies. Living smaller is not always easy. It demands humility, a willingness to say no, and a return to essentials. Yet there is peace in knowing that when less is needed, inflation's power weakens. It cannot erode what is not consumed. Communities that learn to share tools, rides, knowledge, find that inflation loses its sharpness. The cost of a new item becomes less relevant when a neighbor's hand-me-down suffices. In this way, discipline becomes liberation, and restraint becomes resilience. Reflection. To live smaller is not to live poorer, but to uncover richness in simplicity. The quest for tangible value. When money loses clarity, people search for solidity. Tangible value, things that can be touched, used, or relied upon, often becomes a shield. Gold, though ancient, continues to attract. Land provides not only shelter, but also food and security. Even durable tools and skills like carpentry or tailoring serve as anchors when inflation makes abstract wealth uncertain. Imagine a worker who invests in better tools. Though inflation raises prices, his ability to craft, repair, and trade becomes more valuable. Or a family who owns a modest piece of farmland, producing not only food, but also stability, untouched by fluctuating markets. The lesson is that wealth is not only numbers on a screen. It is also the capacity to create, to endure, and to provide. Tangible assets remind people that while currencies may rise and fall, value that serves daily life holds steady. Reflection. Beating inflation is not just about protecting money, but about grounding life in things that endure. The hidden path of patience. Finally, there is patience, the quietest path, yet often the strongest. Inflation is cyclical. Economies rise, fall, and adjust. Those who panic may lose more in haste than inflation itself could take. But those who breathe, wait, and act with deliberate calm often find themselves stronger at the other side of the storm. Patience does not mean passivity. It means preparing steadily, investing wisely, spending carefully, and resisting the urge to chase quick fixes. It is the recognition that resilience is built over years, not days. In the soft glow of evening, as families rest and recount the day, The hidden paths to beating inflation become clear. They are not glamorous, they do not promise instant wealth, but they provide stability, dignity, and peace of mind. And so the story closes, not with a triumphant victory, but with a gentle assurance. Inflation may erode, but it cannot conquer those who adapt, simplify, and endure. Reflection. In patience lies the truest strength. The path may be hidden, but it is steady, and it is enough. The compass of knowledge inflation, while unsettling, is not a mystery that must remain unsolved. It is a phenomenon shaped by policy, production, consumption, and psychology. Those who take the time to learn, even in small measures, find themselves walking with a compass, while others wander in fog. Knowledge begins simply. A young worker might read about the central bank's role in setting interest rates and how raising or lowering them influences inflation. A retiree may learn that money supply and government spending ripple across the prices of basic goods. A student, curious about global trade, might notice how the price of oil or wheat abroad quietly reshapes the cost of living at home. In the rhythm of daily life, such knowledge may seem abstract, but slowly it becomes practical. A family hearing that interest rates will rise might decide to refinance their debts sooner, locking in smaller payments before costs climb. Another, noticing signs of global shortages, may choose to store certain essentials early, not in panic, but in foresight. Knowledge is a quiet shield. It cannot stop inflation from happening, but it can prevent panic. When one understands the reasons, one can adjust with calm, not fear. And when the majority learns together, through communities, schools, even small conversations, an economy becomes more resilient, less shaken by rumors, and less vulnerable to rash decisions. This compass of knowledge does not require mastery of economics. It requires curiosity, patience, and the willingness to observe. Even a simple awareness of history, of how cycles have risen and fallen before, can soften the sting of the present. For just as storms pass, so too does inflation, eventually giving way to calmer skies. Reflection. Knowledge is a compass that steadies the journey. With it, the hidden paths become visible, the shelter of community. No one walks through inflation alone, though it often feels that way. Each family feels the pinch. Each worker notices the weight. Each household adjusts in silence. Yet, when people come together, a hidden strength emerges. Communities can create shelters that individuals cannot build alone. In some neighborhoods, people form cooperative buying groups, purchasing essentials in bulk at lower prices and sharing them fairly. Others exchange services directly, bypassing cash entirely. One person repairs shoes, another teaches music, another grows vegetables. The value flows, even as money weakens. In times of high inflation, these networks become lifelines. A small lending circle may help families weather short-term struggles without falling into predatory debt. A shared community garden provides not only food, but also a sense of purpose, dignity, and togetherness. Even knowledge itself, tips about affordable substitutes, guidance about reliable investments, flows more freely when people talk, instead of isolating in quiet worry. The shelter of community is not only about economics, it is about spirit. Knowing that others share the same challenges eases the loneliness that inflation often brings. A neighbor's kindness can soften the harshness of higher prices. A community's solidarity can remind each member that resilience grows stronger when shared. In history, some of the most difficult periods of inflation were endured not through individual wealth, but through collective endurance. During wartime shortages, families exchanged rations. During economic downturns, workers organized to protect wages and fairness. These shelters, built from human bonds, outlasted the storms. And so, the hidden path of community is not grand or dramatic. It is simple, built on trust, patience, and generosity. Where one household may falter, many together can stand. Reflection. A single candle may flicker in the wind, but 1,000 together illuminate the night. The art of debt in inflationary times. Debt in times of inflation is both a burden and a strange companion. For those who owe, the steady rise of prices makes fixed debt feel lighter, since money repaid in the future may be worth less than it was when borrowed. Yet for those whose debt is tied to changing rates, the climb can become steep, turning manageable payments into heavy chains. Consider a young couple who took out a mortgage. When inflation rose, their monthly payment stayed the same, while their wages gradually increased. In real terms, their debt shrank. Yet another family, whose credit cards carried variable interest rates, found themselves drowning as inflation pushed rates higher. Their balance swelled like a tide rising against a weak seawall. The lesson is not to avoid debt entirely, but to treat it with discipline. Fixed-rate loans can, in certain climates, act as a shield, but floating debts, impulsive borrowing, and careless spending become traps. To manage debt during inflation is to understand its dual nature. It can be an ally if structured wisely, or an enemy if neglected. Calm planning, repaying what is risky, holding on to what is stable, turns uncertainty into a measured path forward. Reflection. Debt is neither purely curse nor blessing. In inflation, it reflects the choices made and the discipline kept. The wisdom of generational planning. Inflation feels urgent, but its true weight stretches across time. A single year of higher prices may strain households, but when measured across decades, it alters entire generations. Parents watching inflation often think not of themselves, but of their children. They wonder whether the small savings set aside will carry any meaning when the children are grown. They ask whether education, homes, or simple security will remain within reach. Yet history shows that those who plan across generations find resilience. Some invest not only in assets, but in skills, teaching children to cook, to repair, to manage money with humility. Others purchase modest land, not for short-term profit, but for the family's long-term roots. Still others build traditions of saving and investing, even in small amounts, teaching patience as a family value that resists the erosion of time. Generational planning is not grand strategy. It is the quiet act of planting trees under whose shade one may never sit. It is the decision to endure temporary discomfort so that those who follow may walk on steadier ground. Reflection. Inflation may erode money, but wisdom and preparation planted in the next generation endure beyond numbers. The gentle balance of hope. Beyond strategies, knowledge, and adjustments, there remains one final ingredient: hope. Without it, inflation becomes more than an economic reality. It becomes despair. Families paralyzed by fear stop moving forward, communities fracture, and individuals retreat into bitterness. But with hope, even modest steps gain meaning. A family cooking at home together finds joy not in what is missing, but in what is shared. A worker saving diligently sees each coin as a quiet victory against erosion. A community planting together trusts that tomorrow's harvest will soften the weight of today's prices. Hope does not deny difficulty. It accepts it, but chooses to keep walking. In the softest way, hope is what keeps patience alive, what makes discipline possible, what gives meaning to the hidden paths we have explored. As the story nears its close, the listener may rest in the knowledge that inflation, like all storms, is temporary. What remains? Wisdom, discipline, simplicity, community, and hope. These are treasures inflation cannot touch. Reflection. Hope is the hidden currency that never loses value. A quiet path forward. And so the journey through hidden paths comes to its gentle end. Inflation remains a part of life, just as the seasons shift and the tides rise and fall. It will come again, in waves both strong and subtle. Yet, armed with knowledge, with discipline, with the power of community, and with the endurance of hope, one does not face it unprepared. Picture, for a moment, a traveler setting down a lantern along a darkened road. Though the night stretches far, the small light makes the next few steps clear. This is what it means to live wisely in times of inflation. Not to see the entire road at once, but to move forward with calm, to adapt with care, and to trust that dawn will return. The story closes as it began, with a whisper, not a roar. Inflation may take, but it cannot silence resilience. It may shift prices, but it cannot erase patience. It may press heavily, but it cannot extinguish the quiet flame of human endurance. And with that thought, let the night settle. Breathe slowly. Rest. The paths are hidden, but they are steady, and they are enough. Final reflection. Though money weakens, the human spirit remains stronger still. As we come to the end of this quiet journey, let us remember the hidden paths we have walked together. We have seen how inflation touches our daily lives, not with sudden force, but with a steady whisper. We have followed the steps of patience, discipline, knowledge, and community, each one offering a gentle light against the shadows of rising prices. The story does not end here. Tomorrow, the world will still bring challenges, and the cost of living may still rise. Yet within you remains a calm strength, built from wisdom and reflection. The truth is simple. While money may lose its value, resilience does not. While prices may climb, hope endures. So tonight, as you drift into rest, carry with you the assurance that hidden paths always remain. Steady, patient, and waiting for those who walk with quiet determination. Now, close your eyes, release the weight of the day, and let the night remind you, you are safe, you are prepared, and you are enough.